Hey folks, welcome back to another edition of My Car Guru. Just a reminder, this coming Saturday is the second Saturday of the month, which means it's time for the second Saturday Cars and Coffee at Gateway Ford and the AMC theaters. We have a really big parking lot that we can fill up with cars. Well, cars, trucks, SUVs, whatever is special to you. Well, not whatever is. I mean, so you've got this 2003 Chevy Malibu in the driveway. Don't bring it. Just come and park it and then come look at the really cool cars and get some free coffee and some unhealthy donuts. Yeah, I tried to figure out if there's some way to get whole wheat donuts or donuts made out of oatmeal or something, but no, nobody makes that. Nobody wants it either. So we're just doing the glazed donuts. Maybe get some cinnamon, maybe, or some powdered. Powdered could be a mess because we'd end up getting a lot of white fingerprints all over the car. So there won't be powdered donuts. But one of the things I'm going to be doing at the Cars and Coffee, oh, by the way, it starts at 8 a.m. this coming Saturday, the 11th, and we'll go until about 11. You know, it's not like one of these car shows where you have to come and sit there all day in the hot sun. No, this is a morning thing. It's brief. You can still get to the house and take care of all those honeydews. So I know how important that is. So come see us down at Gateway Ford, Gateway Nissan, and we'll be hopefully covering up the AMC theater parking lot. You never know who's going to show up for this. I mean, we've had as few as 30 cars and as many as 300. So I would like to have 300. So if you're in the Tri-Cities and you have a vintage car or something real interesting, it doesn't have to be a car. It could be, like I say, a truck. Motorcycles even. Rice burners. I think that's what they call these little Honda Civics and Subarus that are all souped up. You know, they have superchargers on them and special types of fuel injection, and it's just really something the kids are into. You know, if it's got four wheels or two wheels and is driven by a motor, bring it on to Cars and Coffee. And I'm going to do my podcast from the lot of Cars and Coffee. I'm going to be interviewing people. I'm also giving away cash. 10 $50 bills will be issued to the 10 fan favorite vehicles that show up for Cars and Coffee. And I don't want it to sound like I'm bribing people to show up, but when I did that last year, that was my big show. That's when the most people showed up. They like that cash. Okay, what am I talking about today? Well, my daughter Abby, she had an encounter yesterday with a customer. Well, they weren't a customer of ours, but they want to be. They bought a new, well, I'm not going to say what it is, but it's a brand that we sell at my dealership at Gateway Ford and Gateway Nissan. And so they bought it at another Nissan dealership not too far from here. And she wondered if she could bring her vehicle down to have it serviced at our dealership. And my daughter Abby said, well, of course. It doesn't matter where you bought it. Bring it down. We'd love to earn your business. And she had some kind of an issue, and we always ask a group of questions. You know, what is the problem, obviously, with your vehicle? What are you trying to address? Do you have an extended service contract and so forth? And when Abby said that, she said, no, I didn't buy anything. I just bought the car. And Abby said, well, just check your glove box and bring your paperwork. Well, she came down, pulled the paperwork out of her glove box. Nope, she bought an extended warranty / service contract. She didn't know she bought it, and that's bad. What's really bad, though, is she paid $3,900 for a warranty that I would sell for about $1,800. Do you see the problem here? Somebody pays almost $4,000 for something that they don't know they have or didn't know that they bought. Now, how does that happen? I'm going to explain how that happens, and I'm going to enlighten you on why it happens. I'll be back in just 1 minute. Okay, I am back. How and why? Those are the questions that I want to answer. So let's talk about how first. How does somebody spend $4,000? And really, if you add sales tax to that, it was $3,900 plus sales tax, which is about, let's see, I think it was $4,192 that was somehow hidden from her when she bought her vehicle. How does that happen? Well, the easy answer for me is that they're not watching the four targets, or one of the four targets. When I talk about the four targets, they are the four targets that you have to hit when you're buying a vehicle. Really, to simplify it, it's four separate negotiations that are taking place if you are a financing person. You're not paying cash for the car, you're financing it, because those are the people that this happens to. It's the payment buyer. If you are a payment buyer, you are vulnerable to this happening to you, especially by a dealership that does not follow the rules of the Federal Trade Commission, of the Tennessee, well, if you don't live in Tennessee, the Motor Vehicle Commission in your state, and state law as far as disclosures are concerned. Now, a little background, car dealers cannot finance cars. Well, I guess they could if they had enough money in the bank and they wanted to fund car loans, but that doesn't happen unless it's a buy here, pay here lot. A buy here, pay here lot is where somebody buys a car and they finance it right there at the lot. That particular dealership, or whatever you want to call it, car lot, has enough money that they can fund these loans and then take monthly payments until the loan is paid back plus interest. That doesn't happen in the retail new car business. But you can finance a car through a dealership. In other words, the dealership facilitates the paperwork for either a bank or a credit union or a captive finance company like, well, what used to be called GMAC or Ford Credit or Toyota Credit, Hyundai Credit. They're basically they call them captives. So they are owned by the vehicle manufacturer, but they also operate kind of like a bank. They do loan money and service those loans. But the car dealer, no, he is not a bank. He is just a facilitator of the loan. So what happens is you finally bought the car, or you think you have. You've committed to buy the car, and you sit around and wait until it's time to go into the finance office. This is where you have to negotiate the fourth target, because you are getting ready to be presented not only the payments on the vehicle, but the payments on additional products that you choose to buy, like an extended service contract, gap insurance, guaranteed asset protection insurance. That's insurance that if you wreck your car, total it, or it's stolen, and the insurance company where you have your car insured does not pay off enough money to completely pay off your loan, gap insurance will step in and pay the difference. It's a good thing to have for people on a tight budget. Gap insurance costs anywhere from, $600 to $900 for a long-term loan. So, and then there are other products like paint protection, tire and wheel, key replacement, maintenance. If you want to go prepaid maintenance, you can do that. So you cram all this stuff into a monthly payment. And let's say your monthly payment was $450. Well, by the time they get done cramming all that stuff in there, after you've agreed to it, maybe your payment's $600. But that's still within your budget, so you go ahead. And you knew that you bought all that stuff. At some dealerships, at the Bandits, they close the loan basically on the sales floor, because you're saying, yeah, I'll pay $600 a month. And then when you get into the finance office, that crooked finance manager says, oh, by the way, we're including in this monthly payment gap insurance, an extended service contract, monthly maintenance. All of that is included in that same $600 payment that you agreed to out there on the floor. And you're sitting there, what nice people. I cannot believe they're doing this for me. They're giving me all that stuff. But then what they're hoping is that you don't even read the contract. And they don't do the required federal and state disclosure of that contract by reading pretty much every line. No, they do something called the five-finger disclosure. That's where they cover up all those other numbers with their 5 fingers, and the only thing that's still exposed is the signature line, because they really charged you for all that stuff. And you thought all of those products were a gift from the dealership. And the final scenario is where you agree to the $600 a month payment, which could have been $450. And you go into the finance office, and that finance manager doesn't say a thing. You don't know what you bought. He doesn't print out any paperwork. He puts it on a flash card of some kind and hands it to you. You've never seen one of those things. And you say, "What's this for?" He said, "Well, that's got all your information on it." And so you leave, and you don't know that you have an extended warranty. You didn't know that you paid for gap insurance. You paid for $6,000 worth of extra stuff without even knowing it, because you didn't follow my instructions. You didn't get the My Car Guru guidebook by sending me your email to 423-552-2020. If you had gotten that book in your hands, read it before you went to the dealership, you wouldn't have paid $6,000 too much. Or if you did, you knew it, because you negotiated the 4 targets: the selling price, the trade, the terms of the loan, and those products, those insurance policies. 4 things negotiated separately. Now, I don't mean to be hard on you, but, those guys are dishonest. Somehow they've learned how to live with it. But you are being negligent by signing something that you haven't read. One of the things that I recommend people do, if they're not that familiar with financing, and the dealership doesn't do a full disclosure, it's just like they skip over it, and it goes really quickly, and they say, "Sign here." But you haven't read anything. Just say, "Sir, could we just stop just a minute? Could you just print out that contract for me? And I'm going to take it out here into the customer lounge, and I'm going to read it." Now, what's going to happen is his face is he's going to lose all color in his face, because he knows that you've figured things out, and you may have been listening to that guru guy. He's either his podcast or the radio show. He's not sure which, but he knows that he's in hot water. So while you're in the customer lounge digesting, 2 feet worth of documents, he's in there sweating bullets, because they're not going to buy that warranty. I just know they're going to not buy that warranty. They're going to think I'm charging too much. They're going to see what I'm charging for it. And then you come back in there and you say, "Sir, I didn't know anything about these other charges. Could you please explain them to me?" And he'll start hemming and hawing, and you're going to say, "Well, I just don't want that," or "I'm not paying $4,000 for a warranty that the car guru said I should be able to buy for half that price." He said, "Well, let me talk to my manager." And so he leaves and comes back and said, "It's your lucky day. We're having a 50% off sale." At that point, I would just have to leave, because now I know who I'm dealing with. But please understand, I am not against people buying an extended service contract or an extended warranty, because I recommend it, especially if you're on a tight budget. If you can get a policy that will cover you for the next 6 or 7 years and 100 to 150,000 miles, and you don't have to worry about anything but paying a $100 deductible if your engine blows up, as long as you've maintained it properly, then that's a pretty good thing, because cars are very expensive to repair. And gap insurance isn't a bad thing. The odds of your car getting stolen or totaled aren't great. But if you finance a vehicle for 84 months or even 60 months and don't pay much or anything down, or you're upside down going into the car loan and that negative equity is carried over to the new loan, if you do total your vehicle, you're going to be in a world of hurt. You're going to have to come up with a bunch of money to pay off that loan because the insurance company that's settling with you is only going to pay the market value of that vehicle. They don't care how much you owe on it. So gap insurance can be a good thing. You know, some of these policies that they sell, and they're not really insurance policies. They're not guaranteed. They're not refundable. But if you buy key replacement, you know, they bundle these things together, like they call it tire and wheel. And that's if your wheels get damaged or if you have a tire blowout, they'll replace it. If you lose your very expensive keys, and they can cost from $300 to $1,000 on some cars, then they'll replace that. If you get door dings, or you have a paint issue, or you get some stain on your fabric that you can't get out, they'll pay to replace that. Some of those are decent products, but I mean, what are you going to pay for that? And prepaid maintenance, do the math. I mean, are they charging you more to do 6 or 7 oil changes, however many they're selling you, than what you would pay out of pocket if you just made an appointment, came in there and paid for them? I mean, I just soon pay for them when I need to pay for them. What you're doing is you're financing oil changes if you add that to your sales contract. And you're still paying for those oil changes long after you've had them all. To me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to buy prepaid maintenance unless you're buying it at an extreme discount versus, let's say you save 25%. Then maybe it's a good deal then. But I'd rather just pay cash for that than finance it for 84 months. Okay, so we talked about how they're doing it. Let's talk about why. Well, that's pretty obvious. It's a profit motive. I mean, that's one of the reasons they're doing it. Sometimes dealerships want you to buy extended warranty contracts and prepaid maintenance and things like that because, you'll come back for service. And it's kind of like a customer retention tool. And I get that. I mean, we sell service contracts, we sell Gap, we sell all that stuff. But by golly, the people that buy it from me, they know they're buying it. And they're not presented that before they get into the finance office. It's not added on to the payment or to the price when they're negotiating that, because we follow the 4 targets as well in my dealership. I will not let them bundle things together. You know what it's called, don't you? You probably heard this term. It's called packing payments, and it's illegal. There have been a lot of dealer groups and small dealers that have gotten in trouble and prosecuted for packing payments because, to me, it's no different than stealing. I mean, if I take somebody's $4,000 that they don't know anything about, how is that not stealing? A lot of dealerships will say, well, it's us against them. They're supposed to read their paperwork. Well, they can't read the paperwork if your hand is covering the numbers. And they can't understand the paperwork if you don't explain it like you're required to by federal law. You crook. Okay, I'll be back in just a minute. Who would have ever thought that somebody screwing around with the Strait of Hormuz could ever affect gasoline prices in Greenville, Tennessee? That's where macroeconomics affect microeconomics. And it's a short-term situation. Yet, I read in automotive news how, they're expecting a big surge in EV sales because of rising gas prices. Well, just wait till they start going down, which probably be in a couple weeks. And everything changes, and they're saying, why did we buy this electric thing? People just amaze me sometimes. Sometimes I like to look also at what drives people's purchase decisions. Is it price? If it is, you need to rethink things. Price is important, don't get me wrong, but it's not the main thing. I think people need to look at reliability. They need to look at quality. I think they need to look at their dealer and the dealer that they're going to be doing business with, because They're a part of their car life, whether they want it or not. A dealer that retains your business because you both respect each other and they do a good job for you, then that's a relationship worth preserving. If you have a dealer that goes the opposite direction, then you defect. You go somewhere else and establish a relationship someplace else. But to me, those are important things. Reliability, design. Some people buy because it's prestige. I see these people riding around, these young people. I'm talking about people in their 30s and 40s driving around in these big Cadillac Escalades. I just wonder how much their monthly payments are. I doubt that many of them pay cash. I think that's a prestige purchase. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just buy a Chevy Tahoe? Does exactly the same thing. Exactly. And it does it for $40,000 less. Is that a prestige thing? I guarantee that it's not a reliability or necessarily quality. Price is not the driver because they're ignoring price for the sake of something else. And these are the kind of decisions that people make that destroy their budgets and their livelihood. And then they end up at 65 years old and wanting to retire, and they can't because of all the silly decisions they made their entire life. Save what you waste, and you will never have a problem with money again. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of My Car Guru. If you have any questions, text me, 423-552-2020, or send me an email to lennylawson2020@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time.